Welcome to Kickstart for New Groups, a 6-session journey for people wanting to experience what being a community of believers looks like. Whether you call it a turbo group, a trial run, or a test drive, this is a time when you can come together with people you may or may not know and see if small groups is something that meets an important need in your life, the need for connection. I've often heard people say that they believe in Jesus but don't want anything to do with other Christians because there's too much hypocrisy and politics in the church. And I can say unequivocally that they're right. Why? Because the church is made up of people, of you and of me. We're imperfect. I am a hypocrite. I am a broken person. I don't always represent Jesus to others in the best possible light, although I desire to do so. I had to learn that we're all works in progress. And by pointing the finger at the messiness of others, I was excluding myself from being able to extend the same love and grace that God has shown me. It's one or the other. Either I'm pointing a finger or I'm showing grace. Jesus says it very bluntly in Matthew 7, verses 3-5. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when all that time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Jesus doesn't say, just go away and deal with your own issues. No, he said, work through your issues, but also help other believers work through theirs as well. How can we do that if we're not connected to one another, if we're not living out the messiness of community together? One of the very first things that God said in the book of Genesis is that it is not good for man to be alone. God himself lives in holy community, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. If God lives in community and says it is not good for us to be alone, then how could we possibly think that trying to grow in our Christian journey would ever be successful in isolation from and judgment toward others? Do we know better than God? If any of us thinks we do, all the more reason to have a group of believers walking alongside us to keep us on track. We teach each other by example. We learn from the experience of others. We are created to be social. I've also heard it said on more than one occasion that being around groups of the unchurched, like as part of a sports team or social gathering, can be more real than hanging out with people from church. Why? Because they don't worry about having to put up a front. Sometimes it seems like we have to portray that Jesus is blessing us up and down and sideways, when in fact, some area of our life is falling apart. So this is the first lesson of this study. In this group, with these people, be yourself. And that starts with feeling safe. You'll begin with a group covenant that is in each of your books for you to read and sign. What is the purpose? To emphasize that what's discussed in the group stays in the group, because that's where you build trust, and trust transforms acquaintances into friends. You're also going to rotate leadership, so that with every session, a different one of you will be guiding. That way, there is no added pressure or expectations on just one or two of you. Even the original disciples shared responsibilities. The Apostle Peter may have been the one that was more verbal, but that didn't make him the leader over everyone else. Don't worry. You'll find the study straightforward to follow, because it's really just a prompt for you all to come together in reflection, conversation, and prayer. It's also important to note that small group gatherings are never meant to be a replacement for corporate worship or participation in your local church. When you exclude the broader scope of the rest of the church, your focus, support, and growth can become impeded and underdeveloped. Let me say right up front, in your final session, you'll collectively decide if or how to move forward. If some or all of you decide to continue journeying together as a group moving forward, I urge you to do so with the intention of multiplying your group within 2 years. That is, by the 2-year mark, your small group splits to make room for new people to come in. Why? For a couple of reasons. First, because others need to experience the connection of real people who are bonded together and following Jesus as best they can. That's you. And secondly, for your own sakes. Jesus was always looking outward. When we bond as a group, eventually our focus can turn inward and others will be unwelcome because change can seem like a threat to the flow or dynamic of our group. It's called circling the wagons, and it's about as far away from Jesus' perspective on his people being light to others as a cactus is from the depths of the ocean. Some final thoughts. Your group is going to be most effective if you commit to completing these 6 sessions in 6 weeks. If meeting once a week doesn't work for your schedules, at a maximum meet every other week. Bonds don't form without commitment. And secondly, the best model for any small group is to meet in person. There's just an element to in-person gatherings that can't be duplicated online. But if you do need to meet online because of distance or scheduling issues, plan to meet for your final session in person if at all possible, as it will be a time of sharing a meal together and looking both back and forward on your journey. Enjoy your time together, and God bless.